Well,
time to duel.
That's right. Welcome to the Lee Bishop Studio here in Las Vegas, Nevada. If you ever need a logo, be sure to check out Lee Bishop Designs on Facebook, of course. He designed our logos. You can see on the video. And if you're listening on the podcast, you can check it out on Twitter. You'll see it, or Instagram, everywhere. We do have a lot to get to today. We're going to be talking about TJ's coaching during senior night, which I'm very bothered by.
Questionable.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. The Houston Astros scandal that is looming over the MLB right now.
Also questionable.
Very questionable. Tony Grossi's comments on Baker Mayfield, just about them in general, and also something else that I'll talk about.
Hilarious.
Kind of. It's, I don't know. We'll get to it. Giannis Antetokounmpo and Harden's beef. That's like all the talk right now, of course.
Spicy.
The rise of Zion Williamson since he's come back from injury. And we will debate our list of the top 5 most marketable players of all time, or athletes, I should say.
This is a
This has torn apart friendships.
This is a pretty heavy point of contention. This is okay. So we're in a group chat with a bunch of our friends online, and this is like Spencer was like relatively new to the group chat, and this is the first time he ever sparked like a heavy debate. Like it's like a rite of passage for you to bring a topic up that pisses a bunch of people off. To
people get angry,
they're like arguing. So I was really proud of him in that moment.
All right. We'll get right into it. First segment called Face the Facts. Like, it's a fact. The UNLV Runnin' Rebels started all of their seniors on senior night for the first, let's say, 5 minutes of the game. This is kind of baloney, in my opinion. I get how important senior night is. I remember my senior night when I played basketball in high school. I really do. However, we were playing Boise State, the third team in the Mountain West, who are one game above us in the standings. Look, we're getting ready for the Mountain West tournament after having some of the most massive wins of the season after starting very slow. First of all, am I crazy for being upset about this?
No, it doesn't really seem like you have your like priorities in check if that's like kind of what this is a must-win game.
It was a must-win game.
You're heading into the Mountain West tournament. You need as advantageous as a position as possible. So, like, what are you doing? If some of your seniors are clearly not, like, your best rotation players or the best players that you would, like, if you wouldn't start them normally, why is this something that you're partaking in?
So let's break down the starting lineup, shall we? You got Amari Harden.
They win the game.
They won the game. They won the game. We'll get into the specifics of the game in a second, but they started Amari Hardy, Michu Long, which I was very excited about, but you have Bryce Hamilton, of course, but then you have Nick Blair and Sheeble as your 4 and 5. I mean, you have 3 players in Amari Hardy, Blair, and Sheeble who are not very efficient scorers. Blair doesn't look... I don't think Blair's ever attempted a shot in his career, to be honest with you. And Sheeble doesn't belong in the starting lineup, let's be honest. And you go 5 minutes, you know how many points they scored in the first 5 minutes? Just take a guess.
Give me like an over-under.
10.
They scored 8 points in the first 5 minutes.
They scored 2 points in the first 5 minutes.
Shit.
I looked at my boss, Brian Feldman. I said,
"That's so funny.
This is the worst offensive lineup that I can possibly imagine for this team." And I was absolutely right. Now they limited Boise State to 2 points themselves, and it was a 2-2 score in the first 5 minutes of the game.
That's ugly. You shouldn't take be proud of that.
But you want to know what else is funny about that? 4 points in the first 5 minutes. The over/under was 140. What do you think it went over or under?
It's 140. It's about 70 points per team.
They had scored 4 points in the first 5 minutes.
So I'm guessing the fact that you brought it up means they end up hitting the over.
They do end up hitting the over.
That's hilarious.
It honestly was the craziest thing. Someone who I was with the game with had a bet on the over, and they were like crying. And then just the crazy events at the end of the game, it actually ends up going over by like a free throw. Anyways, to be completely honest with you, it was a coaching disaster class from TJ that night. And none of the media people like really got after him after the game because they won. And I do understand that there is no such thing as a bad loss. It just doesn't exist because you won the game, or a bad win, excuse me. But we had a 30-point lead, and it went as low as 12 in the last couple minutes of the game. And I was getting nervous too. I was like, are they going to blow this game? Like, because they were hitting like just endless threes. And I do remember one specific moment that I think encapsulates all of this. There was a rebound at the end of the game Bryce Hamilton got it, and he went on a fast break with like 2 minutes left. You're up 12. Is that not that's a failure on coaching, is it not?
What do you mean? What was the game situation?
So you're up by 12, right? It's getting kind of nervously close with 2 minutes left in the game.
You're up 12 with how much time left?
Like 2 minutes, 30 seconds.
Okay. UNLV's up 12?
You grab you grab the rebound, and you go on a fast break.
Yeah, you want to get some quick points.
You want to run the clock out, don't you?
I mean, yeah. I don't know. What, 12? There's not a whole bunch of 12-point leads in 2-minute game situations that aren't like pretty safe, but I can understand you wanting to like get.
If you hold that ball, you're going down to like the 140-ish time slot.
I also don't think that's wrong. I think if you can see if you can get like quick points to get that lead to closer to a point where it's insurmountable. Like now it's a 14-point game in 2 minutes. That seems a little bit bigger than it's what like.
I call a timeout and I bench every person involved in that fast break.
Interesting.
That's bad coaching. First of all, if you coach your team out of a 30-point lead, you got to call a timeout and talk to them about this.
Sure.
I mean, you can't blow a 30-point lead at the end of that because you're taking that performance into the Mountain West tournament.
I agree.
It's not acceptable to me.
Okay.
I was very upset at the end of that game. It was again, there is no such thing as a bad win, but that's a bad win in my opinion.
Okay.
To have dominated the team that's slightly like barely above you in the standings, like that's a very important game. To barely win it, knowing that you have a very good chance of facing them in the Mountain West tournament, and if you face them, I have no faith in UNLV winning that game. I really don't. There's my rant about TJ Otzelberger. Still gonna get him on the podcast.
He's gonna fight you one day, man.
He's a very nice guy. I honestly have nothing personal against him.
He's gonna kick the door into this studio.
I just thought that was a very badly coached game. I really do.
He's gonna kick in the door to this studio and just start slapping you silly.
I'm ready. We'll get into it. All right, let's move on to the second segment. The Houston Astros. We haven't. I'm just kind of bummed out about this, to be honest with you. We haven't talked about the subject, but it's very important to me.
Okay, set the table here before we really get into the.
So the investigations have essentially stopped because the commissioner went to the Players Association to interview the Houston Astros players involved in it, and the player union said, "You can talk to them all you want, but if you do, every single player you interview has immunity from punishment."
That doesn't really seem like
talk about
a due process.
Let's talk about this first. Should the player union have protected players like this?
This is where you get into like dicey territory with unions in general. Like they want to protect, like you want to protect players like from kind of like being exploited and manipulated by their existing power structures. But at one point, can you like look at something and be like, this is indefensible behavior. You're clearly violating the rules of engagement here, and we can't help you. And that doesn't seem to be happening here.
This is a two-sided affair for me because I do understand the Players Association protecting its players because you're the Players Union. You're supposed to. Those are your guys. Those what make up your association. On the other side, these same players have essentially stabbed you in the back, right?
In terms of what?
They cheated. Like they cheated against the very players that you're trying to protect. Like they've broken the rules. So. Should you really protect players that are going against the very fundamentals of baseball itself?
I don't think anyone who breaks the rules should get protected by the union. Like that's.
But I mean, like I said before, you are the players union, so like the idea that you're protecting your players no matter what, I guess, is kind of a strong statement. But honestly, it looks pretty bad in my opinion.
Like if it's almost like to the point where it's like, okay, we've kind of done everything we need to do, short of finding literal physical smoking gun evidence that they had done this, like literal video of them doing it in the act. Like it's pretty like, oh, you guys did this, and you're not even like really. One, they've already apologized for it in a really poor apology attempt, and two, it's just like pretty much everyone knows. They're not like denying it. People are like contextualizing it in certain ways, being like, oh, if you don't know, like there was the one dude who was like, oh, if you don't know the whole story, you should just shut up. Like, but like. Do you really think you can just kind of just slide this under the rug and no one's going to want answers or follow up on it? I think that's really foolish of anyone to think, especially people who are involved in the Astros organization.
I just think this is like a White Sox throwing the World Series type of event that like almost
It's the biggest
baseball.
cheating scandal of the modern era of baseball.
It's just all their punishment is they lost a couple of picks in the draft. Like, who cares, first of all? And like $2 million. So tell me if I'm wrong, seriously, because I'm ready to accept that I'm wrong. This is just my thought. If you're a kid, you know, as a kid, you have conversations with your friends, right? Like, you know, if you talk to your parents and your parents tell you, hey, man, you know cheating's wrong, right? And you're like, yes, mom, yes, dad. And you're kind of being honest, but, you know, you're going to have, whether anyone believes it or not, you're going to have those conversations with your baseball buddies outside, and you're going to get together and you're going to have this discussion like during a sleepover or something, or like, guys, the Houston Astros cheated and they got away with it. Like, what should we think about that? Am I crazy for saying that I'm thinking like this is bad for future generations of baseball? Like, kids, like, they're seeing adults cheat and win the highest award possible in baseball. Is that sending a wrong, like, do you think that's like sending a wrong message? Of course, sending a wrong message, but do you think it's actually affecting the minds of young children? I think it is.
I don't know, like, if I'd go that far. Like, obviously, people are going to see it and be like, oh, that's bad. But I don't think, like, the immediate mind, like, the mind of a child will immediately be like, well, I can cheat too now. And it'll be cool. But I think, like, when people grow older and they're faced with situations like that, they could think back to this scenario and be like, well, if that happened, like, we should be good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I love baseball. Like, listening to baseball is my favorite sport to listen to on the radio. I just think it's such a great game, and this is looming over like Major League Baseball right now. There's no doubt.
It's gonna be like the thing that's kind of like preemptively on everybody's mind when they watch baseball this year, especially when they watch.
Yeah,
Astros
it's gonna be talking about it's gonna be the main topic over the entire season of baseball. Even during the postseason, it's probably gonna be the biggest trending topic.
So as far as like the whole scenario, the situation where Manfred is talking about like people who are gonna throw beanballs at Astros players, like, where do you fall on that?
I hope they do.
But like, there's like
and I know the commissioner said that. Oh, you can't.
Punishment implications.
I don't think anyone cares.
Like, I don't know if you're gonna be able to stop them. Like,
you're not. Honestly, like, you put in your worst pitcher to like on opening day. You go in there. If anyone's willing to step up and do it, say, "Look, kid, I'm not going to tell you to go
because at that point,
this batter, but it's up to you."
If you're the players' union, what do you do then? Like, you know,
I don't know. I really don't, and I don't think there's any stopping the players from doing this. I think players are willing to accept suspensions for doing this. I
mean, yeah, there's
as long as the first pitcher does it on opening day, I think every team will
there's
follow
just
suit.
been no goodwill like attempt on the end of the Astros to just kind of like rebuild that, not even like trust, but like just respect for the other teams in the league. So.
Respect for the game of baseball.
And just respect for the game, respect for your fellow players. It's kind of just been like, okay, we're just gonna lay low and try and hope you guys all forget about this. None of them's nobody's gonna fucking forget about this. You know,
you won the World Series. I mean, you can't forget about it. So, if it was up to me, they would lose their World Series, of course, and they'd be banned for the next 2 postseasons. They're still slated to win like 90 games this season. So,
without Cole, like,
if they make the playoffs this year and like make a run.
It's going to be gross. It's not going to look good for baseball at all.
And baseball already looks really bad because they haven't been able to figure out this scandal that everyone knows happened.
Mm-hmm. And just say something. Like, there's been nothing like no one's ever said something definitive about it. Like that. No one in the higher ups
and players are
of
just
baseball
lying so much about it.
Like, they don't have a hardline stance on it. Like, players have made it very clear how they feel. Like, they are not afraid. Usually some people when you have a like some kind of scandal as it relates to the overall sport, people usually try and tiptoe about it. Players are very clear, very adamant and explicit in how they feel about this and what they kind of intend to do about it. So I hope it's going to be worth it for the Astros because they're going to get a lot of beanballs this year. It
is worth it. If you're an owner and you have the option to cheat, I'm not saying cheating's wrong. If it wins you a World Series, like,
if you know you can get away with it.
They got away with it. Like
I mean, yeah, like they won.
They won.
They didn't get caught while they were winning the World Series. They won the World Series,
and it's not being taken away from them.
Yeah, so I guess
what's wrong with Major League Baseball?
As far as power rankings for league commissioners, Manfred's got to be like way at the bottom.
Now he is.
I didn't even think you could, like, Goodell is in the middle of a huge CBA thing, and that is just, this new CBA is getting shit canned by
Goodell is so happy right now, I would say. Like,
and people aren't even thinking about that right now.
Not even a little
Everyone's
bit.
just like, Manfred is the devil.
Yeah. It's crazy. All right. Well, we'll move on from that depressing topic, but it is something I wanted to mention because we haven't had a full discussion about it. But it seems like everyone, like, literally, he's like basically telling everyone to move on, and that's a very bad stance to take. Anyways, another depressing topic, I guess, or maybe a little more light.
This is hilarious. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Tony Grossi, he got in really big trouble recently.
Who's Tony Grossi, first of all?
He's a reporter for ES.
I think he's like a
Cleveland
radio
writer, right?
He's a local Cleveland radio personality, I believe.
And he was caught off camera, off mic, calling Baker Mayfield a quote. Listen to me this. He said, quote, he called him a fucking midget. Now let me start off by saying I do not condone such language, nor do I use the word in my regular vernacular. With that being said, the media could not handle it. It took me 10 minutes because I saw on Twitter like, oh, he's in big trouble. I saw his apology. I couldn't find what he said for like 10 minutes. Every website said he said bleeping bleep. I don't know what that means. It was a failure in modern media. It's a quote. A quote. Are we in kindergarten? Are we afraid that our green card's going to get changed out for a red card or whatever? Like, seriously, be a reporter. I'm a sports analyst. I quoted him. I didn't say that.
So, yeah, Tony Grossi is a radio host for Cleveland's division of ESPN, and basically was talking about, like, obviously the NFL Combine's going on right now, so it's kind of like a pertinent topic of conversation. You would talk about how, the speculation around Baker Mayfield when he was getting drafted around his his results at the Combine. So they caught him on a hot mic calling him a quote fucking midget. So this was kind of is your biggest thing about this how the media covered it?
Look, you shouldn't call someone that off mic or on mic, whatever, but it just annoys me that people are so afraid to just say anything now. It's like, even if it's a quote from someone else, like, you can't even say it.
Yeah, I feel like you gotta at least be able to attribute, like,
just tell the people you're a journalist. Report. You should. I'm willing to die if I found a juicy, like, if I found a juicy story and I think it was life threatening. I'm willing to take it to my grave. This is nowhere near that level, and people are afraid to write it in writing, even though it's not their own quote. I mean, it's ridiculous. But
people making fun of Baker Mayfield will never not be funny to me, though. So I understand he had to get suspended. You can't say that. There's no making an excuse.
You have to get suspended for that.
for him saying that, and that's obviously, like, very insensitive.
Term like
yeah, it's obviously insensitive and rude, and you shouldn't. He deserves to have been suspended indefinitely. But people poo-pooing on Baker Mayfield is always funny to me.
Yeah, we'll see if he can bounce back in his junior season. That's all I wanted to say about that. I was very upset.
Let's get into the pure meat and potatoes of this episode. Right. How about it, huh?
4 segments. Everyone's favorite segment. Oh, that's hot.
We're getting very hot today.
We need to get that soundbite, like, ready to drop when we start the segment. Can you pull it up?
Yeah, introduce our first part of our first.
The first topic we'll bring up is
some real hot goss.
It is. It's hot tea. Is that what the kids say? Tea.
There is tea. There is tea here.
James Harden has recently said something about Giannis Antetokounmpo that that I'm not sure how. That's hot.
That's hot.
Anyways, Harden says, if I was 7 feet tall and whatever, I could dunk.
Okay, let me provide some context here. James Harden sat down with Rachel Nichols from ESPN, mainly to discuss the Rockets' small ball lineup. They're essentially, like, running 5 guards now in their starting 5, and so it was about that. Like, that was the pretext of the interview, but it came around to more about the underlying beef that he apparently has with Giannis Antetokounmpo. So the centerpiece around it this time was how Giannis was referring to James Harden during like the All-Star draft, in that like Harden wasn't a guy that he wanted a guy that would pass on his team, so that's why he took Kemba Walker over James Harden. That's why Giannis lost, by the way. Garbage.
I think he would have won if
garbage personnel James decisions. Harden. Absolutely terrible.
Kemba was terrible at the end of that game too.
Just terrible personnel decisions. You wanted at least Harden like looked like he belonged on the floor.
I think the Celtics are confirmed not making the finals now this year, by the way.
Why?
The way I saw Kemba perform in crunch time, even if it was an All-Star game, there was a lot of pressure in that game.
Did you see Jason Tatum lately?
I know, but I'm saying like the ball's going to be in his hands come the last 2 minutes of the game.
I'm not sure I would give it to anyone other than Jason Tatum right now after what I've seen.
I know, but what I'm saying is he had those terrible turnovers, so I don't know. Am I reading too far into the All-Star game?
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
That's hot.
So it was more centered around the fact that, and then even in the game, like I think Giannis threw an elbow at James Harden. Like it was pretty rough. They got pretty rough between them.
They don't like each other.
There's always been like kind of like subtle jabs back and forth, especially when they were kind of like the two guys last year. The past 2 years, they've been like the top two guys in the MVP race. So now, you know, once he has this interview with Rachel Nichols, it shifts the conversation to, you know, like, you know, what Harden believes to be like a mischaracterization of his skills, in that like, oh, he's what, like 10th in the league in assists. He's like a top 10, you know, assists. I would say he's a top 5 passer in the league. And so he was like, you know, at the end of the day, like that takes legitimate skill to do. Like it's to be a you know, as good of a passer as I am. And for what Giannis is primarily good at, which he described to be running and dunking and being 7 feet tall, that takes no skill. So
all
obviously
players born after 2007, all they know is be tall, dunk,
not shoot threes. But yeah, that was kind of like that kind of sparked a lively debate this morning on the Twitter machine. And with a lot of people, you know, either falling in Harden's corner, and that like not even in support of James Harden, but just in support of saying that Giannis is not like an uber skilled player. So it begs a question with you and me here today. Is he correct?
No.
You don't think he's right?
Because we've had tons of, like, JaVale McGee could technically be Giannis, right? I mean, their metrics are,
I mean, honestly,
staggeringly
like,
pretty similar, right?
To say that Giannis, like, obviously it's an exaggeration to say Giannis isn't skilled, but I look at it more in the context specifically between the two of them.
Okay.
I think James Harden is infinitely more skilled of a basketball player than Giannis is. I think the things that James Harden is good at, take way longer of a time to develop into like being as useful as they are for him in an NBA game than it does for Giannis. Giannis just took steroids 1 year and looked like the Nigerian Captain America.
I will say this though, learning to use your body at that kind of size and do it the way he does, that takes we've never seen it before, right?
Yeah, because even Giannis himself came into the league and he didn't look like the way he does now. He wasn't as physically imposing, not even close. So like, but at the same time, what we've seen from Harden too is just like,
is Harden as much of a generational player as Giannis is though?
I want to say yes. There's no one who's like, he's the most prolific scorer since like Kareem, I think. There's just no one who scores as easily as he does.
If he didn't play in the D'Antoni offense, would he be as prolific of a scorer?
I mean, does that matter? Because now,
D'Antoni's not going to be there next season.
Well, yeah, but like now it's going to be. He's established the rapport for himself now, because whatever coach comes in is going to have to play by that style, because that's how he wants to play, and that's how like the Rockets are going to get like the most out of him.
So you would say that James Harden is equally as unique as Giannis Antetokounmpo?
In different ways, yes, but I think so.
I tend to disagree with you there.
Why?
Mostly because we've never seen a player like Giannis Antetokounmpo, like in the same league as him.
Sure, like someone that big, just being able to just
essentially he's a guard at that.
But we've
size.
seen some. But how good of a guard is he? Like an above average.
He's going to win
guard.
back-to-back MVP awards.
I mean, yeah, like that's not new though. People winning back-to-back MVPs. Jordan did that.
No, I'm just saying, like at the size of a center, he's playing like a 2-guard type of position.
Sure. But at the same time, how many people have you seen score at the rate of James Harden
I'm not
does?
trying to discredit James Harden.
No,
too.
of course
like,
not.
Like definitely not. Of course, I mean he's doing things that haven't seen in a long time, but not ever. It was just things that we haven't seen in a long time. So it's just they're so different a players. So it is very strange to compare the two.
I think if you're born in Giannis's body, it's easier to become that. Like JaVale could have been that. Like I don't want to.
No, though. But we're saying that. But there's been numerous players in the NBA who have never done it. Right?
I want to retract what I just said. I don't want it to be misconstrued anyway.
I'm gonna clip that for social and just loop it.
JaVale McGee could not be Giannis in a million years. He's not smart enough. Okay, that's his basketball IQ is not high enough. But I would say that like anyone who's born in a similar physical profile who comes up in this environment of basketball where it's like, especially because Giannis played in Europe too, like that's the prioritization of European basketball is different than it is in American basketball, especially when you're coming up through that system. So I
do feel like that's yet to be seen. I feel like it's way easier said than done.
So you think we'll see another James Harden before we see another Giannis?
Oh, for sure, yeah. That's just, I mean, that's just the kind of league we live in now.
Interesting.
You don't think so?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Maybe you could say Trae Young is like the next James Harden.
Pretty much, right?
I mean, yeah, but I don't know. So I think it's hard. I think it's harder to do. Like, honestly, like, if it's so easy for James Harden to do it, like, what is he averaging? Like, what's he averaging this year? Like, it's down. I know it's down this year because, so he's still averaging 35 points per game. That's fucking crazy. It's very casual. It's the most casual 35 points I've ever seen in my entire life.
You could say that in the same breath for Giannis with some of his like 18 rebound, 28 point games in like 15 minutes or whatever, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah, but like it's not that if we're talking specifically about looking at a stat line and being like, whoa, like we've seen Shaq do that. You know what I mean?
But Giannis is a more skilled player than Shaq is.
Of course, yes.
So, I mean, that also has a factor into it.
I don't know. I'm just looking at it specifically through the context of this argument. Like when it's Giannis thinking that
like quite literal skills, Harden has more skills.
Yes.
I will
exactly.
agree with you on
That's the point I'm trying to make here. Is that like I'm looking at what Giannis says and he's like, oh, Harden doesn't pass, Harden doesn't do this or this or this. He doesn't have the handle or as Kemba does, even though he clearly does. That kind of thing. Like Harden has more snatched ankles than Kemba in the last couple of years.
I will say this too: if Harden had been in the East and this, well. You know what? F it. Even last year, if James Harden was in the league or in the East over the past few years, I think he would have been in the finals at least once, and Giannis was not able to do it. What do you think about that?
I mean, they're both as far as like they're similar in the sense of like it's they're whatever they rely on can only carry them so far as it stands right now. The way Harden plays can only carry him to a certain point in the Western Conference Finals, right? And then the way that Giannis plays, like you can coach around that because we've seen it. You know what I mean? But as far like what I'm saying is, as far as the argument between the two of them is that Giannis thinks that like Harden doesn't pass or whatever, and he doesn't have the handle or something like that. There's like a beef there, but it's like. You're gonna have to get a little more nuance than that. Obviously, like James Harden is a very good passer. He is a very good ball handler. So, and what like obviously Harden is exaggerating when he says it takes no skill to do what Giannis does. Is just run and dunk. Obviously, that's a mischaracterization of Giannis too. But it's like that is what his game is largely predicated on. Is just being like physically overpowering people.
Switch their teams right now. Giannis goes to the Rockets and Harden goes to the Bucks. Does any team have more of an advantage going to the finals?
I think the Bucks have more of an advantage with Harden.
You think so? You think Harden's Bucks could get to the finals this year?
Oh, yeah, yeah, I do.
So you think they have a better chance?
But also,
Harden?
I think that the Rockets could get to the finals with Giannis because they don't have a center. If it was Russell Westbrook and Giannis.
It's a very interesting experiment to think
It's Russell
about.
Westbrook and Giannis, but then you in
I gotta
Milwaukee,
say,
you
for
would
some
have-
reason, I think the Bucks have a better chance of making the finals with Harden than they do with Giannis. Is that weird to say?
I think the funny thing is, I think both of those teams like meet each other in the finals. if you swap
it does
Harden
kind
and
of feel that
Giannis,
way because you make up for the size difference in Houston. Basically, like you fill that gap.
No, it's just
while
'cause,
not
like, yeah.
while not losing like a lot of skill.
yeah. So in Houston, you have like just the two most physically overpowering players in the league on one team, and then in Milwaukee, you would have James Harden like being
On
able
a
to
strong defensive
like,
team.
with space and just being able to shoot. It's basically what the Rockets are right now, but better defensively and with better shooters. So it's like
That's weird.
To answer that inevitable question that's always going to be asked in those situations. Oh, what if they swap teams?
Yeah.
It's like they probably both go to the finals.
They might be both better off.
They'd be-
I didn't expect that when I posed the question. To be honest, but the more I think about it, I think we're right about this. I think that's gonna wrap it up for that debate. I don't know what else to say.
I mean, yeah.
Anytime if you guys have, I might put it up on Twitter. Actually, I'll put it up. I'll put it in the next chat too.
If they switch teams, like who would be better off?
Who would be better off?
Yeah.
We'll switch on to someone who has come very hot into the league after missing the first quarter.
Pretty much half of the year.
Yeah, almost half. Zion Williamson. He has. Let me pose a question. Has he lived up to the hype? Yes or no?
It's really hard to say that right now. He's played like less than 20 games, I think. But the early returns are very good. Like he's doing exactly what you like. Kind of like, it's not even like I don't even want to say people are surprised or people should be surprised, because like I know people like doubted he'd even be able to be this good. But it's like you see it. It's just like no one's in the league's going to be able to handle this. You know what I mean?
Physically,
He jumps 5 feet in the air, like clears 5 feet in the air to catch a rebound. And he seems to like be a powerhouse, like just have like a lot of energy.
I mean, physically speaking, he is the most physically imposing player, except for like what LeBron James and Giannis Antetokounmpo
At his
or
position, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's insane. So with that, he has definitely lived up to the hype. But if there is a disappointing part of his game thus far into the season that I've personally felt is his playmaking. He is a turnover problem. He has a turnover problem without a doubt. He is like dribbled into players numerous times, and he's honestly not making the passes that I would fully expect. It sounds like I'm being much more negative on them than I am. Also, his shooting form is just not there. Like it's not going to be able to.
So he currently has a negative assist to turnover ratio, 2.3 assists and 2.5 turnovers per game.
So yeah.
But he's also averaging 23.
I mean, yeah,
points per game.
you see like on the court, the on-court product, like a lot of the times the Pelicans play is, hey, just yuck it to him in the post and he'll like get a layup or a foul or something like that. What's his free throw shooting percentage?
He's shooting 61% from the line, 62.
So there are definite problems in his game. So I would say
But
it's
also
been
he's-
slightly disappointing. But
I don't know if you can look at his numbers and be like, I expected a little more. You know what I mean?
I expected
He's
more than a
19 years
negative
old.
assist turnover ratio.
He's 19 years old, dude.
RJ Barrett and John Morant do not have negative assist to
I'm
turnover
pretty sure
ratios.
RJ might have might have a
serious?
negative one. Hold on.
I don't see him as someone who.
I know Ja doesn't. Ja definitely does not have a negative one.
I don't expect it to be great in his rookie season or anywhere.
RJ is just barely above the zero in the assist turnover.
It's just that Zion was marketed as this huge, like playmaking forward.
I always thought
like LeBron-esque type of playmaker.
I honestly thought I don't think anyone was billing him as LeBron level playmaker, honestly, because LeBron's going to retire as the all-time leader in assists. But like, I always looked at Zion's playmaking as an underrated aspect of his game. His always like the calling card for Zion, in my opinion, was always just how physically overpowering he was on offense. And that part has been advertised. I think the rest of it is just like he's a 19-year-old kid trying to figure out, like, navigate through 13 games played, navigate like how to, fit in an NBA like system, and getting used to getting a good feel for his teammates who have already played an entire half of a season together. So as far as like, I don't think this is about what I expected. Him just being able to just score and in ways that were just like, I don't know how anyone is supposed to stop this. And then stands to improve. Like as he gets smarter and more experienced, this is very scary stuff.
Is it a stretch to say he's raw right now?
Yes. It's not a
He's
stretch.
a raw product.
It's not a stretch at all, actually. He's very raw, but the fact that he's scoring 24 points per game as one, just like looking at the way he scores, it's just like, I'm going to like put this ball in this basket and you can try and get in the way, but I will like, you may like hurt yourself trying to stop me from scoring right now.
The Pelicans have a positive record with him playing, right?
I'm not sure they do, actually. Let me see. But what else is like? What else have you noticed about his game while I'm trying to figure that out?
I just, like I mentioned before, I do worry about his shooting form, and he like has the ability to knock down an open three. He's not shooting great from downtown to what my
41%.
Yeah,
but on 41%, but on 41% on less than one shot per game.
Yeah, and I think that stat is honestly inflated because of his first outing, like literally his first outing, because there's
he had 3 or 4 threes.
So if he didn't hit those first like 4 threes or whatever, I think it'd be closer to like 30. And I always worry about shooting reconstruction products or productions when it comes to young players, so I don't really know what to do about that.
The Pelicans are not. They're like they've only won like 3 games since Zion joined the lineup.
What's his win share percentage?
His win shares?
Yeah.
Jesus.
We're getting into some really advanced stats here.
Oh my god. I don't even know
what's his plus minus? Let's go with that.
His box plus minus?
Yeah.
His box plus minus overall is 2.4. So
they are better with him, basically.
Not bad, yes.
I don't know. Those are something. I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on Zion. I just know that he's been like a huge topic, and it's just exciting. First of all, it's just exciting to watch him play. Like he is still one of the most this is kind of transitioning to the next segment, but he is one of the most marketable players I think we've ever seen.
Definitely. A kid had 1 million Instagram followers before he stepped foot on Duke's campus.
You like that Lakers Pelican games? I don't know what the TV ratings for that, but
probably high.
I think everybody was watching that game. It's just people gravitate towards him, and he lives up to like the excitement of watching him. Like he knows that people are watching him, and he like plays to that kind of energy, which is crazy. It's a rare talent to be able to do that.
It's so funny because you would think that the storyline for that is like these young Lakers or young Pelicans players, like Brandon Ingram is like had an all-star season. Is having an all-star season this year, and Lonzo Ball is like healthy and contributing,
like hitting threes at a very like good
rate.
He's
probably having his best season, and you would think that's the story coming in, like, oh, this is their revenge game.
It's been washed away.
Zion.
No one. I don't think anyone even discussed.
No one cared. No one even.
Yeah,
dude. In the game they played, Brandon Ingram had 34 points.
No one's even talking about that.
It doesn't matter.
No,
it's crazy.
Like he actually like has his revenge game. Well, they lost, but he has this dominating performance because the Lakers who let him go, and you couldn't find a single tweet about it. Basically, that's just the pool.
What was I going to talk about? I was going to say one last thing. Okay, I want you to be as objective as possible here.
All right.
You know what I'm about to ask you.
I don't.
I want you to try and just be clear, level-headed, by the books, by the numbers as you can. What does Zion have to do to win Rookie of the Year?
They'd have to make the playoffs.
I think
that's what it comes down to.
What if the Grizzlies don't make the playoffs? What if both the Pelicans?
I just think to make up for the lost time, you have to make the playoffs to like bring you up, because like statistically speaking, like Ja hasn't beaten most categories. I think for points. I think that's.
Zion is currently beating Ja in points.
I know.
Okay.
I'm saying like
let me
holistically, because Ja Morant also has like the Player of the Month awards on him too.
Okay.
I think that also plays a factor.
All right. So I'm gonna read Zion's stat line to you. He's currently per game sitting at 23.3 points. 7.1 rebounds. 2.3 assists, 57% from the field, and 41% from three, shooting 62% from the line, and effective field goal percentage of 58.5. His PER is 25.4. His win shares are actually 1.2. If he keeps that stat line up if he ends the season with that stat line, and he plays how many games left? 38 games. Can you justify giving him Rookie of the Year if he keeps that stat line up? compared before you answer,
let's compare this.
Compared to Ja Morant, who's currently sitting at 17.5 points, 3.4 rebounds, 6.8 assists, shooting 49% from the field and 34% from three, and 77% from the line, with his PER being 17.7 and 2.6 win shares.
I just think holistically, because of like the Grizzlies' expectations going into the seasons too were to be like a bottom 3 team in the league, and he himself has elevated them to like the A seed for what it is right now. If the Pelicans are able to leapfrog them in the standings, I think at that point you would have to give it to Zion, just because like his impact was that powerful that it just put them above them. But if it ends right now and the Grizzlies are just even above the Pelicans in the standings, I see you have to give it to Ja, just because he has the brass, like the player of the month or the rookie of the month awards on him. But like I said, if they were able to jump above them in the standings, I think you could justify giving it to Zion, even though I think that the league still probably wouldn't.
I can agree with that. The selection process for these values games played very highly. So if it were going to be like, it would have to be something that kind of trumps that for them to for me to realistically think Zion. Personally, I think like if you're gonna get, I think you should just go to the best player, like the player who played the best at that as a rookie or whatever. And so personally, I would think that I think if Zion can keep it up for the rest of the season, he should get it. But I realistically, like what I believe will happen is I agree with you, the Pelicans don't make the playoffs, is probably not going to happen. Like you said, Ja has too many games on film where it's just and too many instances where he has contributed to his team to being at the point where, again, they're in playoff contention still. So it's hard to make an argument against Ja Morant. Is what I'm saying. It's not hard to make an argument for Zion Williamson, just because he can, if he keeps putting up these numbers, it's like that's incomprehensible for a rookie. You know what I mean? But you can't use that to argue against Ja Morant, in my opinion. So I still think he's pretty much the front runner. I agree with you. A lot would have to happen before he gets dethroned.
He isn't
as the front runner.
He isn't right now, but he can earn it. Is basically, I think, the final statements we can both agree on there.
All right,
this is it. This is the debate that has torn friendships apart and caused more debate than I ever thought it would.
Let's set the scene here. For some reason, okay, what made you want to pose this?
I just thought about it. I thought it'd be a fun segment.
Okay, so Spencer comes into the group chat.
I like to test the waters in the group chat.
Spencer, he like to see if something is interesting enough to talk about. So he comes into the group chat and he goes, who are like the top 5 most marketable, or like who's the most marketable? You said the one, right?
I said who's the top 5 most marketable players, athletes in the world.
Yes.
Of all time.
Of all time. And so for the next hour, we were all yelling at each other for it. So we're bringing it here to the podcast to finally duke it out and get definitive about it. So why don't we start with your top 5 most marketable players?
We'll start with number 5 for both of us.
All right. What do you got?
You know who it is. Number 5 is Babe Ruth.
So stupid.
Let me tell you why. First of all, we didn't live in that era, so we don't really know the true impact of it. But through vigorous research, I have determined that in his prime, like during his time of being the best player in baseball, his marketability saved Major League Baseball like from collapsing. He came at a time right after the White Sox, what's it called? Fixed the World Series.
Yeah, the Black Sox scandal.
Yeah, where they fixed the actual World Series, and people are like, I don't even want to watch baseball anymore. He came in as the face of all of baseball, like the biggest name in baseball. He was one of the first celebrity baseball players, and that was back in a time where players used to have second jobs, that kind of thing. He was making more money than the president, and when they asked him about it, he said, of course, I had a better year than him. Like his essence and the way he brought himself to the game, he was Major League Baseball during his time of playing. That makes you one of the most marketable players of all time.
My issue with you, and when we talk about this, is what denotes marketability? You know what I mean? So hold on. So I can recognize and acknowledge Babe Ruth's legacy as the man who saved baseball after the Black Sox scandal and during World War II and all of that shit. Like that's not really, you can't dispute that. But can I go to school for this stuff to a degree. So it's like when you talk about marketability, it's like someone who is useful to like brands, as far as like someone who stands out and brands stand to benefit from using their image and stuff like that. I don't think Babe Ruth is like that kind of guy. Like that's my guys are all like, my list is populated with those kinds of people. And when we start and I think you can like the members of my list, you can like measure it more by the numbers, more empirically, like their impact marketing wise.
Well, that's why this list isn't marketable and not marketed. It's like, imagine if Mike Trout was like the biggest celebrity in the country. That's what Babe Ruth was.
See, I think
because Mike Trout's boring. We can both agree on that. Like, he isn't a very marketable player.
My thing is, if you brought Babe Ruth into the 21st century, I think
that is not what we're talking about.
No, but I think he'd be Mike Trout. I think that's the same like thing.
No, he wasn't though, because he had one of the biggest personalities in sports history. Babe Ruth did. He was as popular and as good at the time as Mike Trout, but people loved him and adored him, and baseball marketed him as MLB, and he also played for the biggest franchise of all time.
I can concede that.
One of the top 3 franchises.
I can give you that, in that like he was probably a larger than life person. I will never know for sure, just because like there's no way to like properly contextualize.
Just make a time machine.
Yeah, it's easy. But there's no like way to properly contextualize how people felt about him during that time. Just, it's not possible. So like I have a hard time putting him in the top 5 over people I know for a fact I've experienced them being larger than life, you know what I mean? So that's why my number 5 is Ronaldo, because it's like, it's the biggest sport in the world. He is the face of the biggest sport in the world, or at least he was for, I think he still is. You think we're pretty big Ronaldo fans. I would still argue that he's still the face of soccer. While he's still playing, I think he'll still be the face of soccer.
I'll tell you, I agree with you, because he is my number 4, Ronaldo.
That's what I'm saying.
I think he's more marketable than Messi too. I think
Messi's not even on my list. He's not
on my list either. I understand that he's one of the biggest, but he's just not in the, like, he's just known by the soccer world just because how good he is. But Ronaldo is like a bigger than life type of player, and I don't get that essence from Messi. And FIFA is Ronaldo, like, you know, like the games and stuff like that. People don't associate it with Messi as much as they do with Ronaldo, and just, I would say just Americans in general know so much more about Ronaldo, mostly because of his interested ties in playing in Major League Baseball. When he's dwindling down in his career, he's already talked about that. So that the interest alone has already been marketed across the United States, and it's been murmured for like since I was in high school, basically. So the fact that his name has been, you know, passed around our nation so much, I think elevates his name to that higher.
When I view this discussion largely through brands that these guys work with, right? So Ronaldo's with Nike. He's one of the faces of Nike. Messi's with Adidas. Would you say that Messi is one of the faces of Adidas, or did you just now find out that Messi was on Adidas as I just told you that?
I knew that, but I would say that James Harden is a bigger marketed name than Messi when it comes to Adidas even.
Are you saying that? Okay, so I'm cautious saying stuff like that because we live in the West.
That's true. No, I'll agree with you on that.
I would like, obviously they're going to market James Harden to people like us more heavily, but like, I don't know. Like
is the first name that I think of when it comes to Adidas Messi? No.
The first person who comes to mind when I think of Adidas is Kanye West. But when Nike has like top tier marketing, Adidas does not. I think that's important. I think there's a reason. So that means the Nike standard is much higher, in my opinion. I think Adidas, like, it's seen as a win for Adidas when they can steal someone from Nike. You know what I mean? But not everyone can be on Nike and kind of like flourish. Like Paul George is on Nike, and I think like I can. If you told me that he was no longer on Nike, I wouldn't notice. He's not like Paul George is not a marketable player.
No,
much at all, in my opinion.
No, you know not even a little bit.
So it's like there are some people who get that look and they can't really run anywhere with it. Kyrie Irving is a marketable player. Like Kyrie Irving probably cracked my top 10. Like if I had to fully flesh this out, Kyrie Irving would be there. Super marketable player. He's a weirdo.
Just because weirdos are just generally more marketable because they're just more in the public eye.
I mean, like back before he got like as weird as he used to be, though, like or as weird as he is now.
I would even say
Uncle
Drew
stuff.
Yeah,
Uncle Drew stuff.
Yeah, that's
just his style of play is really like it's really entertaining and fun to watch.
Yeah, so
he's got like his name is awesome. Like someone named Kyrie is an awesome name, you know. So he probably gets an honorable mention for my team. But Ronaldo is like, you carry a sport. You're pretty much the face of a sport, and you're on the, you know, the put up or shut up brand. Nike is the put up or shut up brand. If you can't make it on Nike, you probably can't make it anywhere else. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Curry was. That's why Curry's not on my list. Actually, people wear Under Armour shoes because of Curry, but he hasn't elevated Under Armour as a brand.
He just pledged allegiance to the bag, basically, when it comes to Under Armour.
Yeah, like there was something like that Nike wouldn't let him put.
His legacy with Nike would be like, he would be in the top.
If Steph Curry was on Nike right now, he'd be over Tiger.
Yeah,
and I have Tiger on this list very high.
I do too.
He'd be over Tiger 100%. Anyway, let's move on. Who's your number 4?
That was my Ronaldo.
Oh, Ronaldo's your number 4. My number 4 is LeBron. It's the same. It's a similar argument.
He would be obviously in my top 10. Probably.
He didn't crack your top 5?
No, LeBron did not crack my top 5.
You didn't put LeBron James over Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
That's so funny to me.
Just because there was a player during the beginning of LeBron's player that was bigger than him.
It's very easy to measure with basketball players. That's why basketball players populate most of my top 5. Like, basketball is a very marketable sport. And that's like, we're talking about how you can't really buy into how much we get marketed James Harden. But it's like, basketball is a global sport. LeBron is a global figure in basketball. Has been the face of basketball for almost 2 decades now.
It's crazy to think that, is it a stretch to say that LeBron was the most marketable player, like maybe of all time when he first joined Miami, like more than he is on the Los Angeles Lakers, which is crazy. I'm
gonna show you something right now that completely attests to that.
You would think that being a part of the probably the second biggest team in basketball wasn't as big as when he was with Miami Heat.
The LeBron 8 South Beach, the shoe that kind of dropped as he, announced that he was joining the Heat, was last sold on StockX for $750. Now, obviously, there are other shoes that'll go like really high, but like that is one of the most recognizable sneakers that Nike has ever made.
That was also
the South Beach LeBron.
That first 2 years was probably the biggest.
I'm gonna throw
couple
it up
years
right
of basketball, I think, ever.
I'm gonna throw it up right here. Actually, hold on. 1 sec. No, like I'm dead serious when I say it. Like the South Beach LeBron, one of the most recognizable. Hold on, I'm about to throw him up on the screen right here. I'm forgetting how computers work. That sneaker right there.
It's not even
an iconic sneaker.
Ultra appealing shoe in my opinion.
But the fact that it was LeBron, and the fact that it was this color, and the fact that it was the shoe that kind of embodied the fact that he was joining the Miami Heat and he was about to win all these championships and shit like that. It's like made this one of the most popular. Like, I'm legitimately not playing around when I say this is one of the Nike's most popular shoes ever that they've ever made. So it's like, you can't be that guy and not like, and for me not to consider you one of the most marketable athletes that have ever walked this earth. And just the fact, like, LeBron doesn't get the look I feel like that guys higher on the list will get, just because he's less of the endorsee, and he's more of the guy who wants to make the bigger decisions. That's why he starts his own movie studio. He's got his own media company, all that stuff. He doesn't want to be the guy who gets paid from someone else to do that stuff. He wants to be the guy that pays other people to do that kind of stuff. So that's why I understand with him. He probably could be. I think he could be the most marketable athlete of all time. Do you doubt that? Do you doubt that he could?
For some reason I do, and I don't know. I think he enjoys living a more private life than all the other names on our list.
I just think he wants the autonomy of it, just being able to have exact control over what it is. Like he's got very few sponsorships, like to where he's like the endorser. Like it's Sprite, and so I would imagine Sprite allows him a fair amount of liberty. And his Sprite campaigns have been very successful. The fucking want a Sprite cranberry thing, it was like a huge meme. Like, and the stuff with the Kia Optima, like I would say is like that's probably one of Kia's more popular campaigns. Was like, oh, does LeBron actually drive the Kia Optima thing? Like, so he's very. I would say he's actually, exactly. So he's probably I would imagine that he's very selective about the brands that he works with. So I think if he really like wanted to be that kind of guy who was absolutely everywhere, he could.
If he wins a championship this season, I think he will be the most marketable player of all time.
Just because
if you win a championship with the Lakers, it's just. I think that takes you to a new height.
All right, who's your number 3?
Tiger Woods.
Wow. Who was your top 2? I'm so curious now. I'm so confused. I'm actually so confused. Explain to me why Tiger's number. I also have Tiger on my list. Why is he in your number 3?
Tiger Woods is baseball, like, forever. There's never been a player like Tiger Woods.
I mean golf.
What did I say?
You said baseball.
Oh, shoot. I have baseball in mind. In golf. Even now, like...
Tiger Woods is golf.
And just the fact that he's still good, I think, at this age, like, him winning the Masters was probably the biggest thing to happen in golf, like since his prime. Like, the only thing you compare in terms of how big it was only when he was as good as he was. Like, that's how impactful he has been to the game. And all the video games, like, very few players get video games based off of themselves.
Dude, like... I wouldn't even say that John Madden is a marketable football coach, right? But he just so happened to be the guy who gets like the video game named after him. That's fine. He's known more for the video game than he is for being a football coach.
He's actually that's so funny that you mentioned that because I just watched a documentary on John Madden and he said him getting the football video game is like it was luck.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't like it could have been any guy with a name that sounded catchy enough. You know what I mean? But Tiger Woods was like, no, we need Tiger Woods to launch this golf. EA looked at their golf game and they're like, we need to throw Tiger Woods' name on this in order for it to be successful. Not
PGA like 01 or whatever.
PGA Tour 2001 would have just it would have been any regular old game. The fact that it was Tiger Woods PGA Tour 2001 was what made it a popular game. The fact that Tiger Woods is on the cover with the red polo and the black hat and is like the classic Tiger look, like that's why that game like became what it was. People wanted to play as Tiger Woods and they wanted to buy the game with Tiger Woods' face on it. And Tiger Woods is on my list and I want to like I'll probably just reiterate it when we get around to that, but just like people wanted to like argue with me that LeBron was more marketable than Tiger, and I'm like, that's literally not. LeBron, like I said, is not even the second most marketable player in his own sport, in my opinion. And so I was like, there's no way. Like my biggest example for Tiger was they put Tiger on the Gatorade bottle. LeBron is not getting on the Sprite bottle. I bet you if LeBron asked, they put him on a Sprite bottle. But Tiger had an entire product line of Gatorade named after him. That's juice, dude. That is incredible influence. That's incredible marketability. Like, and the fact that it sells, it would sell.
And I think that if people do something based off what you did, like his fist pump is now like infamous with golf, basically. Like almost in the same vein of like Randy Moss's getting mossed on. Like if you are such an impactful player that you're remembered simply because of your like just that alone, that is a testament to how marketable you are. And now anytime anyone hits a big putt, it's the fist pump, and you think of Tiger Woods immediately. I do it when I hit a big putt.
So that's okay. So that was your number 3. Number 3 was Tiger. My number 3 is along the same vein of what you just said. My number 3 was Kobe. God rest his soul, obviously, of course. But Kobe was such a maverick as far as just being if Kobe didn't have a single sponsorship over his entire career, he would still have the biggest like brand recognition of any basketball player, I would think. The only symbol in basketball that is more iconic than like the word Mamba is the Jumpman. And so like that's what like Kobe it's the same thing. It was like the Tiger fist pump. You shoot a crumbled up piece of paper and everyone's like been talking about it like the past few weeks. Shoot a crumbled up piece of paper in a trash can, you go Kobe. Like that's what I like. His ad campaigns for Nike were amazing. Dude, if you talk about like we talked about Shaq offline, how Shaq is pretty much everywhere, and I think that Me personally, that makes him a very marketable figure. Not a top 5 marketable figure.
He's a top 5 most marketed player, but not marketable.
Sure. I think he's a top 5. I think he's in the top 10, honestly.
Oh, for sure. I think brands, he's in the top 10 most marketable.
Because I think brands look at him and they see value in getting Shaq's name on something. Like, Shaq is the face of Icy Hot. Shaq is the face of the General Insurance. Shaq is now the face of Papa John's Pizza. Like, that kind of thing, right? But for Kobe, like, he takes things that you knew all of that stuff previously before Shaq put his name on it, right? You knew all of those products, and you kind of like had an understanding of what they were. If you needed it, that's what you would get. With Kobe, like, what I think about with Kobe was like Body Armor energy drink. He launched that. Like, that is him. That's the Body Armor exists in my like lexicon exclusively because Kobe Bryant was like, this is what you need to drink if you want to be like Kobe Bryant. You know what I mean? And you take that, you take his Nike ad campaigns, the fucking Mamba system, just the funniest commercials of all time, where he's got all these like influential celebrities. He's got Kanye, he's got Aziz Ansari, he's got Tony Robbins, all these different people, and they're like taking a seminar from him about how to like embrace the Mamba mentality. The puppets, the ad campaign with the Kobe puppets, like that stuff's iconic. And he's got like easily, since Jordan, probably Nike's most consistent shoe line. Everyone wears Kobe's. Everyone in the league wears Kobe's. You know what I mean? And that was before, like, you know, obviously more players are going to wear them now out of respect. But even beforehand, it was like easily one of the most popular shoes in the league. You know what I mean? So Kobe was just like, someone is synonymous with basketball, especially in the early 2000s. For this generation of kids who came up watching the game, Kobe was basketball in the same way that Jordan was basketball for kids who were coming up in the 90s. So Kobe's my number 3. All right, who was your number 2 now? Because I'm so curious, because mine, like I said, mine was Tiger, and we just talked about it. Who is more marketable than Tiger Woods for you?
Brian Scalabrine. No.
I would have walked out. I wouldn't even waste the time calling you a racist. Just walk out of the studio.
No, my number 2 is actually Kobe Bryant.
Wow, Kobe over Tiger.
And yes, like, I think Kobe's death has cemented him as, like, just elevated his brand. And as much as I hate to say that, it's just the reality of business at this point. Like, his name is now forever elevated beyond anything now at this point, and I think his brand grows much larger now in his death.
That's so
it's
that
morbid. Trust me, dude, it's just the nature of business.
Well, damn.
And I have mourned for Kobe's. I didn't actually watch that. I didn't watch it because
essentially
I had done my mourning for him, and I couldn't stay with that content. And it's just I know that his family is going to want to keep his brand going too. Just
I wouldn't even say, okay. I want to differentiate, because I feel like we get caught up in this, and when we have this conversation, is I want to differentiate someone's legacy from their brand. A brand is kind of an economic, I
think his economic brand goes very high now, like much higher.
I don't think people are like, they're not going to sell Kobe shoes anymore and stuff like that. People are gonna like pay
when
their
this is all
respect.
settled. I think there's gonna be a new line of Kobe shoes.
Probably like way down the line, when it's not really like looked at as like a scummy thing. Obviously, it's going to be like a thing, and it's going to be popular down the road. Like, I don't think that Nike's never going to sell a Kobe.
He's going to have a legacy line,
obviously,
down the road.
Like, yeah, they're going to do that, obviously, but that kind of stuff comes in due time. But I think that like there are reasons why Kobe was and is one of the most marketable athletes of all time. But I don't think him dying is one of those reasons. Honestly, I honestly think that like because obviously his name gets brought up, or like people are going to talk about it and talk about his life and his legacy and all of the stuff he contributed to sports and culture and all of that kind of stuff. But I don't think that like that is intrinsically has an economic value as far as like marketability, you know? And I would just say like we should be like, we should just be more conscious about it. You know what I mean? Like it's it's less of a thing about selling products. It's just more about paying, like the conversation around Kobe right now is more about paying respect and remembering how, like, all of the stuff he did while he was alive. You know what I mean?
I just think when all the dust settles, like, I'm not saying that it's right. First of all, let me say that I'm not going to be the one selling Kobe Bryant based gear. I'm just saying that when the dust settles and Nike's board of directors
I know why you say that is because we've kind of seen stuff like that happen. Like we live in Las Vegas, and we have the Las Vegas shooting, and then you go every 2 blocks and you see the hashtag Vegas Strong T-shirts for $25.
I've said that on a few forums.
And you just don't know where.
I hated that saying.
Yeah. It's fine. Like because it's like it made me uncomfortable too, because like because it was kind of like it
became a profitable thing.
No, because it was kind of the thing that they kind of did every time a certain region or something like that, something bad happens, you just slap strong at the end of wherever it happened. You know what I mean? Boston Strong, Houston Strong. It's like, it's kind of like a generalization, and it doesn't really, like, I understand it's a thing that for people to unify under, for them to like feel a sense of comfort, but like, again, at the same time, people are like selling it and you don't know where the money's going, and that, like, so I understand why you think that about Kobe, but I think this is different. I honestly do think this is different. There's obviously always going to be those kinds of people who are going to try and, like, there are people who went to that at the Staples Center, the celebration of him and his daughter's life, and they were like selling the pamphlets on eBay and stuff like that. Obviously that kind of stuff is scummy and bad, but I don't know, like, Kobe was one of the most marketable players in the world, and it's because he was such a larger than life personality when he was here. So, all right, you're number one. I think we're probably in agreement.
I think we concur here.
It's Jordan.
It's Michael Jordan.
It's Jordan. It's just easy, right? Like,
bigger than life. Like, built his own brand by himself. Like, and that brand is now one of the biggest brands in the world. So, like, yeah,
when we talk about someone being the face of their sport, there is no one who was the face of their sport for longer or just so intrinsically linked to it the way Jordan was. It's just, the Jumpman is one of the biggest cultural figures and icons or logos or symbols ever in, like, human history. I'm not even like you would put it up there with, like, the cross, dude, honestly. I'm dead serious, dude. Yeah. I am dead serious. I don't care if it sounds sacrilegious. The Jumpman is almost as equally recognizable of a symbol as the Christian, like, cross. I'm like,
globally,
I'm being dead serious. That's how much of a reach Jordan had. Like, again, to this day, it's still the most, like,
Kawhi Leonard signed with Jordan Brand. So,
yeah, back in the day, yeah.
And I'm just saying, like, that name, like, the names that even just the brand is able to get.
It's
now.
Like, it's like you're being, like, when a guy signs to Jordan, it's like you're being knighted, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like Russell Westbrook signs. You got, like, Russell Westbrook you had signed. You had Chris Paul who had signed. You had Carmelo. You had all these guys who were, like, it used to, like, Jordan Brand has changed since, but it used to be, like, a very exclusive club of basketball players. And it was for people who kind of, like, had that respect for Jordan and were looking for, like, and that, getting that cosign, that Jordan Brand, like, endorsement was like, oh, you are officially on the greatest basketball player of all time. You're on his radar. You know what I mean? And then Nike was obviously for guys who like wanted to make more of their own name for themselves. Guys like LeBron, guys like Kobe, and stuff like that. So, but Jordan, it's just like, I don't know how you argue anything other than him being the most marked. Like, just all of the campaigns, all of the different moments that he gave us in specific shoes that we specifically link to through the shoes he was wearing. There are shoes that he has that are just literally named after moments that he did something absolutely incredible in them. It's like a pair of 13s called the Playoffs. A pair of the black and red Jordan 12s are literally just called the Flu Game 12s. Because those are the shoes he was wearing when he dropped.
He was hungover that game. That's my theory.
He got beat up by
The only reason we say that is because the announcer said he had the flu.
He got jumped by his bookie the night before.
He probably was gambling and drunk all night.
I'm just saying, you talk about someone who's larger than life.
Yeah.
There's no one. He was bigger than basketball. He held the entire basketball world in his hands.
You had one of the greatest rivalries of all time, like right when he joined the league in Bird and Magic, and as soon as he started taking over, gone.
Became about him. Like, that doesn't happen. That hasn't happened. That never happened before him, and I don't know if it'll ever happen.
That was the biggest rivalry in basketball history, and it was subsided immediately when he came to the scene.
So think about the height of LeBron versus Curry, which is probably the closest thing we've gotten since then, right? What do you think? What is the closest, like the biggest basketball?
LeBron going to Miami would.
So maybe LeBron and the Celtics, right? Or something like that. As far as just like heated rivalries. I'll probably get crucified for saying like it was like LeBron. Someone will probably be like, "Oh, it's the Kobe and the Lakers or something like, or Kobe and the Celtics or something like that." As far as but
that was such a short-lived thing.
The gist of it is take the biggest rivalry of the modern era, just either between two players, two teams, a group of players, something. Take that heated rivalry that captured everyone's attention so so much, so significantly, and then imagine like Zion Williamson comes in and like just immediately makes it all about him. Like, you can't even picture that. Like, how good would Zion have to be? He would have to be even better than he is right now, and he's already putting up historic numbers. For them to just
he's a big name, but he look, Michael was even bigger.
To demand so much attention that it just like the spotlight is automatically taken off something that like has been tried and true in the league for years, and then to put it on you. Like, you think about how hard of a task that would have to be in 2020. And Jordan did that amongst one of the historic rivalries in the history of the sport. There's not even something that, like I said, we were trying to find something that really even compared to Magic and Bird back at like in the contemporary era of basketball, and we can't really even find something that matches up. But the fact that you have fucking you had this guy that came in and just immediately just stole the spotlight and never gave it back for like 15 years after that.
Till he went to the Wizards.
There's no one else, man. Yeah, there's no one else. Yeah, by the time Mike went to the Wizards, it was Kobe's time.
Right.
So Michael Jordan was and is the most marketable basketball player, like the most marketable athlete of all time. I don't think you can dispute that.
Would you like to throw any honorable mentions out there? I have one.
I did. My honorable mention. Kyrie was my honorable mention. Okay. I would say Odell Beckham is also an honorable mention. Odell Beckham, in his height, was the face of football, I think. I think Pat Mahomes is on his way too, though.
Tom Brady should definitely be up
Tom Brady, for sure. If we're going to talk, like, it's just harder for football players. It's just inherently harder. They wear
a helmet. Yeah, it's literally what it is.
It's just it's inherently harder.
Bo Jackson.
Of course.
Should definitely be mentioned.
I think Ken Griffey Jr. as well, if we're going to talk more baseball players. Ken Griffey Jr. crossed the sporting barriers, in my opinion. Like I said, people were wearing his sneakers to hoop in. So it's a very interesting conversation that you can have, you know what I mean?
People have different definitions of it, so it's hard to make one concrete one.
But I'm saying, like, you know, influence and legacy and all of that stuff, they all kind of go hand in hand, but there are specific things that kind of like set them apart, and that's kind of what formed my list. So
it's a fun debate. So if I recommend maybe, or Derek Jeter, that's also another.
Jeter's up there.
He's definitely up there. But yeah. So it's a fun debate to have with friends. And
is that it?
I think that's going to wrap it up today. You can follow us on social media. Twitter at Delivering Sport, Instagram at Delivering Sports. We're on YouTube and anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Follow Spencer on Twitter at Spencer the Wiz. Follow me on Twitter at KevinOMO_. Follow at Blue Milk Boys. We're going to have a new episode coming out this weekend on the second episode of season 7 of Star Wars The Clone Wars, and another fun segment that I'm going to have to think of between now and when we actually end up recording. So make sure you head on over there for all your Star Wars fun. But as always, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to episode 7 of Delivering Sports.
Yeah, episode 6 was our biggest episode yet, so let's try to break the barrier again.
Let's keep it going.
Yeah, thanks so much for listening, guys. We'll see you next time.
Peace.